welcome to the deep dive. For most of us, when we think about financial success, we immediately, grab a calculator.
Right.
We think it's a math problem, a puzzle you solve with spreadsheets and complex equations.
But our source material for this deep dive, and this is heavily inspired by behavioral finance and Morgan Housel's brilliant book, The Psychology of Money, it tells a totally different story.
And that's really the mission today, isn't it?
That's it. To show that doing well with money is, at best, maybe 20% about technical knowledge.
And the other 80%.
That's all behavior. It's psychology. I mean, traditional economic models, they all rely on this fiction of the perfectly rational human Homo economicus.
The person who always makes the perfect decision with perfect information.
Exactly. But in reality, we're messy. We're emotional creatures.
And that's where the real deep dive begins for you, the listener. We're moving beyond the spreadsheets and focusing on that irrational human elements.
Right, because behavior, our sources argue, is the single hardest part to master, even for people with Ivy League degrees and decades of experience.
Yeah, the insight we're exploring is that your decisions aren't really dictated by some objective model of risk and return.
No, not at all. They're molded by your personal history, by fear, ego, pride, all of it.
We're really analyzing how these emotions just inevitably influence our financial choices, and often they push us to make decisions that are completely contrary to our own long-term interests.
So if financial success isn't about being the smartest person in the room, what is it about?
Well, the central thesis here is that what really matters in building and keeping wealth is just how you behave. You don't need a massive salary or a genius IQ.
Precisely. The research shows that people who are, merely ordinary, but who have these robust behavioral skills.
Like patience, discipline.
Exactly. Patience, discipline, the ability to control fear, they can become wealthy. And at the same time, brilliant, high-earning people can absolutely destroy their own finances.
Just by making impulsive or emotionally charged decisions at the wrong time.
At those critical moments, yes.
Okay, so that distinction really changes the game. But why is it so hard for us to maintain that discipline? Where does our financial mindset even come from?
It's your blueprint. Your entire relationship with money is this unique cocktail of your past experiences, your family, the culture you grew up in.
And this is where Housel gives us that fantastic quote on personal bias.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. He says, your personal experiences with money represent perhaps 0.000000001% of what's happened in the world, but perhaps 80% of how you think the world works.
That's a terrifying insight.
It is.
It's just my entire framework for investing might just be deeply flawed because it's based on this tiny sliver of economic history I've personally lived through.
Exactly. Let's make that flaw concrete with an example. Imagine two investors, one born in the 1950s, one born in the 1970s.
Okay, so the investor born in the 50s comes of age in the 70s and 80s. They see high inflation, a volatile stock market that goes sideways for years.
So their formative view of investing is going to be incredibly cautious. They'll see the stock market with skepticism. Maybe they prefer real estate or bonds.
Because their personal history taught them that markets don't just reliably go up. They've internalized that risk.
Right. Now contrast that with the investor born in the 70s. They hit their peak investing years during the incredible bull run of the 90s and 2000s.
Oh, tech gains, right.
That person develops a deeply bullish, risk-tolerant view. They think markets always go up over the long term. A dip is just a buying opportunity.
So their views, cautious versus bullish, are colored entirely by their personal history, not some objective market truth.
And that's the point. Before you even get to the math, you have to realize you're fighting your own ingrained emotional baggage. That realization is the starting line.
It is. So let's move from diagnosis to action. Let's unpack the key behavioral lessons for, financial mastery.
Okay, lesson one is a tough one to swallow. It's about understanding luck and risk.
That feels profoundly uncomfortable.
It is, because financial outcomes are guided by forces beyond our individual effort. When things go well, we say, I'm a genius. When they go badly, we say, oh, bad luck.
Right.
True humility means accepting that randomness and the fact that 100% of your actions do not dictate 100% of your outcomes.
And that's why that Bill Gates quote is so powerful. Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose.
Once you think you can't lose, you take catastrophic risks. That arrogance is a behavioral killer. So if humility is lesson one, then patience is lesson two. The power of compounding.
Compounding is usually taught as just a math formula, but that misses the psychological weight of it.
Completely. Growth is driven by compounding, but compounding, as Housel says, always takes time.
The mechanics are easy. The waiting, The emotional endurance of watching small returns build up slowly over decades, that's the hard part. We want instant returns.
Which leads us right to lesson 3. Focus on what you can control. You cannot control interest rates or recessions or global events. Trying to predict them just leads to anxiety and bad decisions.
So what can we control?
Your savings rate and your spending. The goal isn't necessarily getting the highest returns, it's achieving success by not losing lots of money.
And just consistently funneling what you can into investments.
That is the key leverage point. You can build wealth without a high income if you have a high savings rate, but you absolutely cannot build wealth without one.
And the greatest enemy of that savings rate is lesson 4. Avoiding lifestyle inflation. This is where ego just fights you tooth and nail.
It's so insidious. Lifestyle inflation is just that tendency to match every single raise in your income with an equal increase in your spending.
You get a raise, you buy a bigger house, a nicer car.
And suddenly you're in the exact same financial position as before, just with more expensive stuff.
Our sources say saving is the gap between your ego and the income you earn. It means knowing when you have enough.
Yes, and stopping that constant chase for more, which, ironically, often forces people to take huge risks just to sustain their new lifestyle.
This brings to mind the tragic story of Rajat Gupta.
It's such a powerful example. Here was a man who rose from poverty in Calcutta to become the global managing director of McKinsey. I mean, just dizzying world-class success.
And yet he never developed an internal sense of enough. He got involved in an insider trading scam that risked absolutely everything.
His reputation, his freedom, his fortune, all for money he clearly didn't even need.
It wasn't about the money.
It was the ego trap, the need to keep up, to maintain an image. Like, that story just drives home that this is fundamentally a mindset game.
So if the mindset is the key, let's go deeper into the science. What models explain why even brilliant people fall into that trap?
Well, this is where we enter the formal field of behavioral finance, the marriage of psychology and economics. And it really all starts with Herbert Simon's theory of bounded rationality.
Bounded rationality.
Yep.
In plain English.
It just means we're limited. We can't possibly process every piece of information or calculate every optimal outcome. We just don't have the time or the cognitive capacity. So instead of optimizing, we satisfy.
Satisficing. That's choosing an acceptable outcome, not necessarily the absolute best one.
Exactly. Good enough. And because we're bounded, we rely on these mental shortcuts or heuristics. They're efficient, but they can become systematic errors, cognitive biases, when we misapply them.
So let's talk about the big ones, the classic pitfalls.
Well, you've got confirmation bias. That's the tendency to seek out information that confirms what you already believe.
And you ignore everything that contradicts it.
Conveniently, yes. If you think the market's about to crash, you will only read articles that support that view.
Then there's anchoring bias.
Right. Relying too heavily on the first piece of information you see, like an old stock price. You buy a stock at 100, it drops to 50, and you're anchored on that $100 price as its true value.
Which makes you unwilling to sell and take the loss, even if the company is failing.
And, of course, the availability heuristic. Overestimating the likelihood of events that are easy to remember, usually because you just saw them on the news.
So if the media is all about a real estate collapse, you get overly worried about one, even if your local market is perfectly healthy. You mistake media coverage for probability.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. The biology behind why these shortcuts feel so irresistible. Neuroeconomics shows us that these decisions are deeply, deeply biological.
The split brain system.
That's it. You have the ancient emotional X system. It's fast, intuitive, all about survival. It's been fine-tuned over 500 million years.
And then there's the C system.
The C system, but as a threat to survival. We panic because our ancient wiring is designed to flee from danger now.
And that panic leads directly to loss aversion, the defining feature of emotional investing.
We feel the pain of loss far more intensely than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. That feeling of pain motivates us to do disastrous things, like holding a losing stock for way too long.
And the data on this behavioral cost is just brutal. Studies tracking investors who tried to time the market selling high, buying low.
They averaged, what, 1.9% returns over a 20-year period?
And the passive S&P 500 over that same time, over 8%.
That massive gap, over 6% compounded annually. That's the true cost of emotional interference. It's the measurable price of letting your X system run wild.
And it's not just our internal biases. The X system is also incredibly susceptible to external social factors.
Now we're talking about herd behavior.
Following the crowd.
Exactly, mimicking the actions of the perceived majority. It's what creates bubbles and crashes. We do it because, evolutionarily, being kicked out of the tribe was a death sentence.
There's even strategic modeling on this, right? Like the Bayesian game model. It shows that even if you're rational, you act irrationally because you assume other people are being irrational.
You've got it. You see everyone buying into a frenzy, you think the stock is overpriced, but you buy it anyway.
Betting you can sell it to the greater fool before it all comes crashing down.
And you're just driving the bubble higher. It's the ultimate paradox.
So let's bring it all back to the ultimate prize. What money should actually buy you? And it's not yachts or mansions.
It's control. Control over your time. Money's greatest value is the ability to give you autonomy. Freedom is the real dividend of saving.
And this really highlights why high-interest debt credit cards, personal loans, is so destructive.
It just diminishes your power. It takes away your ability to take a time out in life, forcing you to prioritize earning over living.
So the entire journey circles back to mastering your mindset.
It has to. Research shows a staggering 97% of millionaires studied believe they could achieve their wealth. Success isn't just a technical skill, it's a belief system. It's a move toward what they call conscious competence.
Conscious competence. So
Yeah.
knowing what you know, being aware of your biases, and then deliberately choosing to act with logic instead of emotion.
That's it. And that's why coaching is so critical. Our sources argue that no amount of great financial advice can land well without addressing the emotional fog that impedes discipline governed by logic.
You have to manage the behavior first before the investment strategy can even work.
Right.
So, to summarize our deep dive for you, financial guidance is maybe half technical knowledge and half behavioral advising. Success comes from mastering self-awareness and focusing on what you can actually control.
Your high savings rate, controlling your spending to avoid lifestyle creep, and having the sheer boring patience to let compounding do its work over a very long time.
And it's worth a final thought on how constant this behavioral challenge has been throughout history.
Absolutely. The form of money has changed drastically over 5,000 years. We've gone from bartering to metal coins to paper currency to, well, now decentralized virtual currencies like Bitcoin. The medium is constantly evolving.
But the human using the medium stays exactly the same.
Precisely. Regardless of its form, money's value depends on the importance we place on it, but we're still using that same 500 million-year-old brain to interact with it.
Which leaves us with this provocative thought for you to chew on. We know that the deepest, most primal parts of our brain treat a 30% portfolio loss like an existential threat to survival. If money's highest value is the control it gives you over your time, and our ancient biology often forces us to act irrationally to survive the market moment, how do you actively redefine survival in your financial plan? How do you ensure your long-term goals are driven by your C system, your rational thought, and not your X system, your fear and instinct, when the market inevitably panics?